Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Crypto Pulse Weekly. Just give me a second. Let me sort out. Yeah, let me sort out the Instagram and apologies for the past 2 weeks. I've not been well, so I'm just I'm just recuperating now, really. But I think I'm better, a lot better than before. Thank you for everybody that reached out to find out about my health. I'm a lot better than before. Thank you very much indeed. So today, I'm not going to take too much of your time as usual. We're just going to have a look at what's going on in terms of the markets, a few insights about what's happening with pricing of equities generally, and of course we'll talk about the macroeconomics, what's happening with the Ukraine war and the internal wars within the developed nations, if I may say that. So without much ado, let's get started. So in terms of market update, I think the first thing I wanted to talk about was the Ukrainian Russian face-off. As long as these tensions are there, we're likely to see a lot of uncertainty on the markets. And that's because an actual direction for the markets is better than ambivalence. And what I mean by ambivalence is not being sure whether you're going left or right. So if there is no guarantee or there is uncertainty as to what the outcome of a particular scenario is, it is usually worse for the markets. And that's exactly what's happening right now, because people don't know whether, is Russia going to invade Ukraine for real? Is Putin serious? Is he joking? Or is he grandstanding? Or is he trying to negotiate for something else? There are too many variables. And because of that, it makes the market makers uncomfortable. As a result, there are usually heavy sellers. However, two things I need us to keep in mind. This Ukrainian rumor started in January, and even though the market crashed at that point in time, what you will have observed was from then on, we've made significant gains from Bitcoin hitting the low 30s to getting as high as 45K. What that means is that there is some resilience in the market. And if you remember what I said at the time, that Bitcoin below 35K is below the cost of production. And if it stays below the cost of production, it can't stay there for a long period of time. So because of that, you would expect a rebound, and that's exactly what happened. In the particular instance that we have now, what I see is that we're in a correction, and that correction will probably take us to definitely to 38K, likely to 36 plus before we rebound. So let me show you what I'm saying. If we take a look at this is the daily chart. If we take a look at the daily chart of Bitcoin, since we started dropping from 46 essentially, so yeah, almost 46K. Since we started dropping from 46K, the next attempt was at 44 plus. Usually when you don't break upward in a price trend, the market will try to go in the opposite direction. That's exactly what's happened. So we couldn't break upward beyond 44 or 46K. And now we're breaking further down. And that's why I said I expect that the low end should be around 36, because by the time in 2-3 days time, this Bollinger Band, which is the lower standard deviation, will be around 36K plus. And what that means is that the price will once again be on the lower end of the standard deviation. So statistically, there is more upside move than a downside move. Pardon my low tone. As I said, I'm not fully recovered. Sorry, if you're not seeing the chart, just give me a second. I think I shared only the application the other time. Yeah, so this is what I was saying. I should be able to see the chat now. I was only sharing the application the other time. Yeah, so you should see the chart now. So what I was saying was that the price has really just bounced up and down. So we've bottomed out, like I clearly said, around 32K. I don't think we're going down there again, not anytime soon. We'll probably see, as I said, probably see 36K plus. I don't think 35 will be an extreme, but if we do, it will be a quick touch, a quick touch and go, as they say. There is too much upside momentum and inertia, really, for Bitcoin at this point. And one thing people do not realize is that when you compare so I'm going to show you something. And I think I opened that because I don't have all my news on slides today. I'm just going to read to them. And what I want to highlight is these comments that somebody made here in Crypto Panic. Crypto Panic is a news aggregator. And what the comments read for people who are who are looking at it is that you might not be able to see it because the resolution is not too good. If you are watching it on YouTube or if you're watching it on Instagram, what the person was saying was price differential in the last 6 months. And I'm going to read it out. Bitcoin minus 8%, Salesforce minus 18%, those are stocks. Netflix minus 24%, Adobe minus 28%, Rivian minus 35%, Facebook minus 40%, Shopify minus 54%, PayPal minus 60%, Square minus 60%, Moderna, the vaccine maker, minus 63%. So when you look at this, you need to understand that even in the context of the risk aversion in the equities markets, cryptos are actually still performing way better than most of the stock. I mean, that's Facebook. Facebook is up 40%. Even Apple has taken a hit as well. I think generally tech stocks have taken more hits this week and in the last 6 months than the previous 6 months. So really and truly, as much as people may want to say that, okay, well, things are not going well. If you read, let me change this to a white background so that people can see the news here. Let me pick one. No, I'm not going to pick. I'm just going to read it out. Disney names Metaverse list. So that's Disney going to Metaverse. Miami Coin Disbursement Fund to fund a rental assistance program. Justice appointment appoints crypto enforcement team. FBI is launching their crypto units. Coinbase Back Center deploys identity solution. FBI forms new virtual asset exploitation units. SoftBank back broker Avenue to offer Bitcoin trading. Rare Finance raises 4.8 billion to build DeFi on NEAF protocol. 53 million, that's Sanjay. Macro, I just want to show you things that are actually happening in the markets. Where is that stuff? There was another news I wanted to actually show you. It's not here. Let me get it on. I think it's on the other browser. Yeah, this was the other one. This was the other one I wanted to show you. I mean, take a look at this news items. Russian lawmakers begin public discussion on establishing crypto rule. 1.5 million moved from Uniswap. That's a hack. Ukraine's crypto legalization bill set to go live. This started last week. Selfware becomes first brokerage to offer Australia's cryptocurrency services. You can see what FSB is saying now. Controlled investment in crypto could affect global financial stability. Yes, Justice Department, of course, that was the one I talked to you about. And people are moving into Adidas NFT collections. So one thing is obvious. If you check the news, I mean, and sort of blow out the noise, one thing is obvious that there is adoption of cryptocurrency. And like I tell people, think about the internet in 1995. In 1995, where was I in 1995? I just finished. I think I finished secondary school in 1995. Think about internet in 1995. and having stakes in companies like Apple, Microsoft, or even Amazon at that point in time, even if it was just $10 or $100 stake that one had at the time, consider what it will have been by now. And what I tell people is this is a lot much more greater than the internet by far. I mean, by wide margins. The internet is almost like John the Baptist, of the biblical John the Baptist, to what the opportunities that the cryptocurrency space provide gives to the world. And we have not seen the end of it yet. That's what I can see. We are just scratching the surface. We've not seen the full ramification of the impact of digital asset and blockchain on our humanity. So for people that are worried about the price of the commodity, you shouldn't be worried about the price, because if you check the last 10 years, like I always say, you'll see that there's no, on the average, Bitcoin has grown 50%, more than 50% actually. If you were to put it on average of 12 years, it's actually more than 50%. It's closer to 100% than 50%. So understand that this is only going to go up. The adoption is only going to go up. The market capitalization is only going to go up. So if you realize that, I'm going to show you something now to buttress my point. If you realize that, then you see something very interesting. If you keep your wealth in, let's say, Bitcoin, even if it's just Bitcoin, you will only be richer in the years to come. And to just explain what I'm talking about, this is a Google chart. It's not even a fancy chart. This is a Google chart of the price of Bitcoin versus the US dollar. So it's US dollar to Bitcoin. Usually people look at the price of Bitcoin to US dollar, but this is US dollar versus the price of Bitcoin. Take a 1 year look. Just take a moment to absorb that chart. 5 years ago, it was 0.001. Just note the number of zeros in front. That was the range that Bitcoin was to a US dollar 5 years ago. Right now, it has, look at it, 4 zeros. It had 2 zeros before. It had 4 zeros now. So it's done 100x in the opposite direction in 5 years. It's even worse when you go to Max, which will take it to 12 years. Because what you then see was that it was 20. Think about it, 20 whole number. So it was 1 digit with 1 0 at the back. And it has gone from 20 to, for more than 100, what am I saying? It's more than 100% drop if you really calculate it. It's just that, I guess, the logic that they used to calculate it here did not decode that correctly. But it's negative, it's saying negative 20, but it's really more than negative 20, because when you start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. When you count 4 zeros, 4 zeros is 10,000. In a negative integer, that's like 1,000% in the negative. That is how the US dollar has stood up against Bitcoin over that period of time. And even in the yearly charts, you can see that even though it looked like US dollar gained a bit more than Bitcoin, but it's still not as much as the drop from just 3 years ago or 5 years ago. And what I'm telling you is, in another 5 years, you look at this chart and you'll be like, but we were just at 0.0025 a few years ago. By that time, it will probably be 6 zeros or 5 zeros to 1 US dollar. And the reason this is so, for people who do not know, is that the government, world financial system, has found a way to legally make everybody poorer on a year-to-year and month-to-month basis. I talked about that during the London Crypto Summit, and I talked about that so many times before. It's the idea of currency based on fiduciary trust, really, is the biggest Ponzi ever. But then there's a lot of firepower to back that Ponzi. So who are you not to believe in it? But the truth is, every month the government makes everybody poorer because there's always money printing going on to solve ongoing crises. So in the light of that, for people who are still wondering where's the price going to, two things I can assure you. For the year 2022, Bitcoin is going to probably come back here around this region in the short term. But then again, we're going to see another all-time high, probably in the range of, yeah, probably in the range of 81,000 or 102,000. That I am sure of. I may not be sure about the timing. I may not know when exactly this is going to happen, but I'm sure of that we're going to hit 81,000 for sure, because that's the next upside target. And because the more the prices of Bitcoin decouples from equities prices, the lighter it becomes and the less headwind it has. Let me explain what I mean by that. Usually, because of the overwhelming adoption of Bitcoin by institutional investors in the last 3 years, what it means is that they have a fraction of their portfolio in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, then the other fraction they have in other equities. When equities start to crash and things like stocks start to go down, usually because Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies has the fastest liquidity and time to cash, it is the first that they're able to start taking money away from to either support their open positions on the stock market or to buffer their liquidity in those equities and buy either at a lower price or dollar cost average what they already have. So because of that, when you see SPX going down, which is S&P 500, automatically you can expect that Bitcoin will start going down. By the way, one of the reasons I said Bitcoin is still going down is because obviously SPX is in a downtrend. There's nothing to stop it till it gets back to this 4,201. And if it doesn't stop at that, it's probably going to 4,000. So it's important to understand the correlations and how that is dragging the price down. So again, I've said it many, many times. When you check the price of the dollar index, which is currently going up because when US is making noise about war, or when US is going to war, US will usually have a strong dollar. What it means is that you will witness stronger money movement into the US dollar when you have a war situation, because everybody then knows that the government is going to pump money. When the government pumps money, treasury, the 10-year treasury and the 5-year treasury, all of that will go up. There'll be a buyback of bonds, and for money managers, because they're not allowed by law to, just put all of their money in crypto or put all of their money in a particular equity, they spread it around. For them, it's a lot easier for them to put it in low risk passive income assets like bonds. The percentages are not much, but it saves them the stress because they don't have to do anything. You just need to move the money there. So as I always say, understand the money flow. And the money flow is always that when there's uncertainty, you will see it here first in the stock index. Then you will see the interpretation of the US dollar index. Then you can expect to see, the price of Bitcoin reacting. As I said, the price of Bitcoin is going to go down because, just based on candlestick analysis on the weekly charts, we've basically made a lower low this week, and we've posted a reversal candle pattern on the last weekly chart. So I expect that we might make an attempt to come lower. Again, if you saw the daily chart I was showing you the other time, I was saying that the Bollinger Band was a lower standard deviation of price. And on a very high time frame, price usually rebounds strongly around that. If you remember, about 4 weeks ago, I was mentioning that I was expecting a reversal here because the weekly Bollinger Band was where we found, price reversals in the price history of the chart of Bitcoin. So really and truly, I expect that we'll take another plunge downwards. But bear in mind that, where is that? Let me switch to another chart. Bear in mind that this indicator that I told you about, sorry, the Bitcoin price indicator that shows the production cost of the price of Bitcoin, is the rock bottom of how much miners have to sell. If miners sell below this top of the pink line, this pink shaded area, anywhere below this top of the pink line, miners are selling at a loss. And you can just see what the price did when it cut there in January. So I expect that, yes, on the daily charts, we'll probably come back here and see price retesting 36, because that is the lower edge of the Bollinger for real. And it's around the same place where the price made a very huge plunge up for the last time. So most likely there is a big demand in that area. But more importantly, this is the point of no return for miners. And if you remember what I said about miners in December, I mentioned that miners are now no longer selling, especially the big miners, which constitute about 70 to 60% of the mining community. They're no longer selling because after the exodus in April, May from China, many of them got acquired by venture capitalist companies in the United States. What that meant was that miners were no longer selling, and as a result, they were getting money to fund their operations without having to sell their Bitcoins. For the accountants in the house, you understand that if you have stuff on your balance sheet and that stuff is growing, your balance sheet is like a list of your assets and liabilities. If you have something on your balance sheet and it is growing in value, it gives you more equity to collect loan. It's like more collateral to collect loan from the bank. So what they've done is they've gotten funding, some of them fundings for the next 5 years, to run their operations. They are banking their Bitcoin, literally. So they are mining and they're banking. Not only that, they are also buying the dip. So when people talk about on-chain analysis and talk about, how the market is reacting when price drops, like the one we had here, when the price first dropped on the 4th of December, the reason it went back so quickly was that whales and big miners have pending orders or buy orders sitting at those low prices. And the reason they do is they don't want to sell their own Bitcoin. So they are mining to keep, but they want to force the hand of the smaller miners and retail to sell to them. We don't have more than 21 million Bitcoin. We're never going to have more than that. And more than 90% of that has been mined already. So it's a game of scarcity and they're playing that long game. So for anybody that is worried about their Bitcoin, I always say you shouldn't panic sell because it's really never going to go down. And another thing I said, I think I mentioned during the London Crypto Summit was understand that this is actually digital real estate. I mean, we can talk about Ethereum and, Luna and AVAX and all the other ones there that are just, you can call them speculative assets or equities like stocks or like tech stocks. But Bitcoin in itself is digital real estate. And the example I give is if you have an apartment building or a block of flats, or a block of land, let me use that, in lower Manhattan or in central London, and it was given to you by your aunt or your uncle or your grandfather. And for reference, for people who don't know where I'm talking about, these are prime real estate. It's like having in Nigeria, it's like having a property in Lagos Island, not even Lagos Island, in VI. VI is actually expensive. Yeah, like having a property in Obzumba and Padway in VI, which is prime area, or in Admiralty Way in Lekki, which is prime area as well. You're not going to want to sell it because it doesn't make sense to sell it. What you want to do is to borrow against it and use the money to do whatever you want to do and keep the property because the property is a lot of leverage. In the same way, we are getting close to that point where there will no longer be any Bitcoin to sell because all the Bitcoin will be in the hand of holders and whales. And the ones in circulation will just be for collateral and for many people, it will almost be like proof of funds for borrowing. If you remember, I said in November or October that Coinbase in the US was already offering people loans against their crypto. I mean, I mentioned it like 3 months before the time that this is likely to start happening, and just 3 months after, Coinbase starts offering loans for crypto. So these are the macro dynamics that are really driving the price. So I'm not usually worried about the day-to-day prices anymore because I can see the trend and I can see that the trend is upward. So if we're to take let's take this. Let's take the weekly charts. Let's take the weekly chart here, or even the yeah, weekly chart is good. Logarithmic scale. Let's take the weekly chart on the logarithmic scale, and because the logarithmic scale will show you the whole picture. So if we take the weekly chart on the logarithmic scale, let me take this out, and you look at the price of Bitcoin over the last, essentially, okay, this chart is a smaller one. Okay, this Bitstamp should have a longer chart actually. It should be longer than 2022, 2012. Anyways, but if you put this on the logarithmic scale, what you will see, as you can see on this scale, is that since that time, we're essentially in one long uptrend. We have, various ups and downs, but when you think about it, put it in the monthly chart to condense it. Yeah, this is better. When you think about it, you see that we've essentially been going up in a long ascending wedge for people who are interested in market structure annotation, like a big ascending channel, a big ascending wedge where the price hits the top, comes down, hits the top again, comes down, hits the bottom. We've not hit the top since we started this run. We've not hit the top. And what we were saying in mid last year was that there might be a change. If you remember, for people who have been here for a long time, that there might be a change in the trajectory of the story of Bitcoin, because before now, every 4 years, you see these huge price jumps, but the price goes up astronomically. That there might be a change in which these cycles are dragged longer, and as a result of that, the roof for the channel is getting higher. So when we did this original projection, and we said if the Bitcoin price was to go from March, it wasn't from even, I think it was from here. It was somewhere from here. It was somewhere around here. That if it was to go from here to here last year, we'll have ended up around 190. Now we have not gone up. So what it means is that if we are to go up along this trajectory now, the roof is higher. Chances are it might just dilly-dally around the middle of the channel until it gets to that price. But what I'm saying is, really and truly, the price is just going up. Now there will be pitfalls because the price is like ebbs and flow. It doesn't go up in a straight line. There will be ups and there will be downs, but the price always goes up. And the reason I'm sorry for if it sounds like babbling today, the reason I'm saying this, I saw a post on one of the WhatsApp groups that I have on WhatsApp, and one guy, well, I joined that WhatsApp group way back. Most of the guys there are traders, they're scalp traders, they trade futures on crypto. And the guy was complaining that all his altcoins are down now by 80% or 90%, and that he's not taking any profit. And that he feels so bad because he used this life saving to invest in crypto, and he didn't really know about it then. So a friend of mine was telling me that, please, can you just give me a word of encouragement? That's because you seem to have word of encouragement with crypto. And I said, well, the reality is, if you are too close to a situation, sometimes it blinds you to see the big picture. And if you can't see the big picture, then you can't really understand things in the true context. I'll give an example, a biblical example. There was a story in the Bible where a particular prophet called Elisha was surrounded by an enemy army because they said he was spying on them and was leaking out their secrets. So they came to arrest him, and he came with chariots, battalions of soldiers. And so his servants went out and they saw those guys and he freaked out. Like, we're going to captivity and going to become slave, because that was way too many soldiers for anyone. But all of a sudden, he ran to his master and said, "Master, we are finished." And the master said, "Calm down." And the master said, he prayed that God should open his eyes so that he could see the big picture, essentially. What was the big picture here? God opened his eyes and he saw that despite the fact that physically those guys were standing there, spiritually there were chariots of fire, literally littered all over the same expanse where those guys were. So all of a sudden, the guy realized that, oh, we're really not alone. This is really not what it looks like. For people who are not Christian, sorry to use that example, but it's just an example of when you look at things in and out of context. So if you're looking at this now, what they tell me is that this price is going up regardless. And it's going to keep going up because there's finite supply and there's deflationary mechanism. Deflationary mechanism means the halving that happens every 4 years. Now, that halving has been the singular determinant factor in the oscillation of price before now. But what we now have is heavy investment from venture capitalists, heavy investment from Wall Street into the crypto space. And because those guys are now heavily invested, they will find a way to reverse manipulate the markets. And that's what you are seeing here. Ordinarily, this kind of movement should have resulted in the price touching like maybe 200 and coming down again and going up. Because they are heavily involved, they will find a way to reverse manipulate the markets. And one of those ways, like I mentioned before, was CME futures. The day they introduced the CME futures in 2017 was the day the market started coming down. Same thing has happened now in 2020. They introduced Bitcoin futures-based settlement. What simply that means is that they can produce artificial Bitcoin and settle it in the United States dollars. Now, this is something that was done for gold back in the 70s and 80s. And that is why when you look at the chart of gold, the chart of gold is stagnant relative to what it used to be back in the days. So if I let me open it and not talk too much, because what happened then was that the same thing was done. So once gold started going up, because supply was relatively small and the demand was high, what happened was they started introducing the futures. And with the futures, what it meant was that you don't need to back up the contracts with gold. You can settle it in United States dollars. So that's what's happening with Bitcoin now. And that's why the price will always appear to go down like this from time to time, because the CME guys and a lot of the institutional investors will always push the price down. Now, they are pushing the price down. Unfortunately, it doesn't affect the underlying supply, because the underlying supply is consistently going down. So what will then happen is at some point, there will be parity. We're not parity, but the reality will catch up with the price. So regardless of whether the price stays in this range, and it looks like the price might actually stay in this range for a while. So we might have something like this, where the price is going just almost in a slant, just a slightly ascending channel, where it keeps going up and going up and going up before it eventually goes up again at the next halving. But the price will have to go up, because as you saw from that daily chart I was showing you, miners cannot sell below 35K right now. It is not, it's 35K, right? 34,000. They can't sell below 34,000 right now. So the price can't come below 34,000. There are so many trend lines I have on different charts. I have so many trend lines showing that confluence is heavy with a lot of demand. You have this lower standard deviation there. You have minus production cost there. So there'll be too much demand to buy at that price, and it will not be nice, or it will not be favorable for even the big miners for the price to go below that. So there's a lot of demand there. And if you listen to this guy, Mike Novogratz, who's the Galaxy Digital guy, who was saying that there's a lot of demand from institutions, that he knows a lot of institutions that are waiting to buy below 40K. And what we saw was that when the price dropped, you see the price dropped from 40, what was that, 40? The price literally dropped from 40 to 35 for 2 days. And from that time, the price started going up, because many of those institutional buyers were loading up on Bitcoin, and they are buying it. So in summary, let me finish my epistle on Bitcoin so that we can get into other things. In summary, Bitcoin is not going to zero. For people that are afraid, I know that for many people that have altcoins, the altcoins has grown to like minus 90 or minus 70 or minus 80%. Well, understand that it's always in a cycle, and there are a few outcomes that can come out of the current crisis that we have. One, the Fed will increase the rate in March, which will make the US dollar stronger. Stock market will suffer more. Bitcoin will suffer as well. but Bitcoin will rebound because once it starts getting to critical levels like this, it will attract a lot of buying attention. Two, Ukraine and Russia continues to drag on and people get tired of them, and whereas or Russia makes a move and every other person retaliates. It could very easily escalate to a world war. To be honest, because there are different parties that have different interests. So if Russia gets attacked, China is on hand to attack, support them. Same is North Korea. And if Ukraine gets attacked as well, the US is itching for war because, like I said last week, right now, war is the only tangible distraction for the US government to take everybody's attention from the superhuman inflation that is going on in the US markets. I mean, even in the UK, everywhere inflation is everywhere. And to be honest, if this were a Republican government in the US, by now there will be tanks in Ukraine, US tanks. I tell you, I kid you not. I'm almost too sure about that. I've seen too much of US history to know that when the economy is not misbehaving the way it is, one of the major well-tested strategy was to project an enemy outside and create a war, and everybody will forget about what's going on in the economy. So really, we're in one of those cycles. But I think, generally speaking, I think gold will do well this year. As you can see, gold is already going up. I think Bitcoin will do very well, and by extension, crypto. I'm not a fan of stocks market, so I don't trade stock. I don't have stock. But I I try as much as possible to stay in my lane with crypto, and I think crypto will do very well. If you have investment in crypto, keep your investments. If you are too scared, just wait for the price to come back above 67 above 70K. You can cash out, but understand that you're cashing out from superior assets to an inferior asset. If you cash out to fiat, I think I need to mention that. And if you're a long-term holder, now is the time to actually buy more, because we might not see these prices again for another few months to come. In terms of crypto health check, the overall market cap for crypto right now is 1.88 trillion. We went as far as 3.6 trillion. Let me just show you that on the charts to make it shorter. Where is total? Yeah. So in November, we touched 3 trillion total market cap. And since then, we've been coming down. I think we might get to, I think definitely we're going to get to 1.6. So the prices are going to come down lower. But there is always a mix. For people who are just joining for the first time, there's always a mix between the overall market cap and the amount of that market cap that is sitting in Bitcoin. So this is the overall market cap for crypto. So that's 1.786 trillion. This is the Bitcoin market cap, which is 760 trillion. So out of the 1.786 trillion, 760 billion of it is sitting in Bitcoin. And that's also coming down. But what will show you the differential usually is this one, which is the Bitcoin dominance. And you can see that the Bitcoin dominance has been going up over the past few days. It's made a dump, but it's being supported by 200 moving average. So I think that alts are going to suffer a lot more if this green upside continues. Alts are going to suffer a lot more in the days to come. But generally speaking, I think we'll see some money flow between when this where is that stuff again? When the overall market cap hits around 1.6 trillion, I think we'll see a redistribution to Bitcoin more than altcoins. So that's where we are in terms of the Bitcoin market cap. In terms of fear and greed index, we are still in fear, which is 30. Like I said, you can never go wrong with fear and greed index. Give it 6 months. If you buy on any part of this left-hand side and wait for when it flips green, you will always end up with profit, because it's not magic. It's AI. It's an AI algorithm that fetches all the data on the web. concerning crypto and projects it as fear and greed. So when the fear is high, definitely the prices are going up. So like I said about 2 weeks ago, was that 2 weeks ago, when I was talking about that Bollinger Band on the weekly chart? Where is it? I think that was 2 weeks ago. 1, 2, 3, no, 4 weeks ago, sorry. Here, when this price touched here on the week of the 17th of January, I said I was expecting the reversal because now we've touched the Bollinger. And for a very long time, I actually didn't think we were going to come down to touch it until we broke through the mid-range of the standard deviation. And the reason I'm so confident about it is because many of these algorithms are based on AI robotics. So they have all the statistics programmed into them. So naturally, when you see the price bounce, take this out. When you see the price bounce off the lower standard deviation the way it did, it automatically shows that there will be a reaction. And that's exactly what we've seen here. So we've seen that reaction, the price bounces off. If it comes down again and touches it, the price will bounce off. But I don't think it's going to come down that far because don't forget that we had this layer of demand and supply around the 30,000 region that we didn't succeed in breaking for 8 weeks last year. So we've started forming another one now at around 36, 35K. I don't see us breaking it as well. So in terms of what to expect next week, frankly, I think it depends on one, the infrastructure bill, the executive order that the United States president is planning to, as the standard deviation, sorry, for the person that asked on Instagram. So there's an executive order for crypto that's coming out next week in the United States. That's one of the reasons why the market is volatile right now. So people are thinking, okay, you might not favor crypto, and they're trying to price it in. But generally speaking, I think it's just my hypothesis, but I think that we might have a situation where we will have a Bitcoin rush. Just, keep that thought somewhere. I know it's a divergent thought. There might be a rush. There might be a rush to acquiring Bitcoin by nation states. If you've observed El Salvador in recent time, you find out that El Salvador is actually a richer country in less than 6 months of adopting Bitcoin as legal tender and keeping some of their reserves in Bitcoin. Everybody's watching. Argentina had 50% inflation last year because their economy is not doing well, and they are stacked up against the US dollar, and they can't compete with the US dollar. None of those countries can compete with the US dollar. So eventually, people will start yielding. Bolivia has already started making the moves. I think by November or so, they're planning to make it, legal tender as well. As more and more people begin to do that, it will become all of a sudden the main thing, and people will start rushing towards it. Another news that I saw during the week that was fantastic was, and it's funny how I talk about these things, and weeks, months later, they sort of come to happen. I remember in 2022, in 2020, maybe December or November, we were having one of these weekly chats, and I said that the opportunity to harness, wasted energy from the petroleum industry was so immense that if only they could channel, the resources from flared gases, for instance, and associated gases, that all those flared gases, they could just channel them into mining farms and let them use the waste gas for fuel instead of having to waste them, that it will be so much lucrative for oil companies, because then they'll be making so much money just selling that gas for cheap. And the Bitcoin miners will also be getting, value for money for having cheap source of power that would have otherwise been wasted. And I mean, it's sustainability as well, because that means those gases are not flared, not contributing to, breaking the ozone layer and climate change. And all of a sudden, after that discussion, then there was a news that came out that Saudi Aramco was considering using, their flare gases to power mining firms, or they were looking into it. They came out to deny it openly, but I knew then that there was no smoke without fire. This week, ConocoPhillips has started talking to a mining firm to pass them, associated gases for the purpose of mining. So these things are happening, but they are not making the headlines. What's making the headlines is the percentage drop in the price of Bitcoin. So understand that when there is great things happening, there's always a mirage or a masquerade or a distraction for people against what's really going on. What's going on is before our very eyes, a massive generational transfer of wealth is happening, massive one, very before our very eyes. And it's all been beclouded in the noise, climate change, war and rumors of war, and people talking about all sorts of things and making it look like, nothing is really happening. But what I'm telling you is people are stacking up big time, like big time. The big banks are buying. The problem is they can't buy with the way they want to buy, because they buy the way they want to buy, then the price will suddenly shoot from 50K to 500K. Then it will make sense. So they create these artificial scarcities and depress the price so that people who are novices, people who are new investors, people who are retailers will panic sell at the fear of losses and give them the precious Bitcoin that they just bought. So please understand that really Bitcoin is not for selling. If you're going to have a savings account, you should have it in Bitcoin. It's not a financial advice. Of course, I realize I'm on the internet and I'm here. It's not a financial advice, but it's just the truth. Because if you think about it, where is that chart? There was a chart I was showing you before, USD Bitcoin chart. Think about that chart. It's just I can't look for. If I was to give you the 2-year one will have been more dramatic, because this is 2019 exactly. This is what I wanted to show. This is 2019 to 2022. Now, in 2019, before Corona, we had US dollar was 3 zeros and 2. That was 2019. Just follow me on this discussion. That's 2019. 3 zeros and 2 8 or 2. That was the range it was. By the time we were in 2021, it has added 1 0. 10x in loss of value. That's exactly what's happened. Between 2019 and now, we've added 1 0 in the opposite direction, 10x in negative. That is how much money literally has been printed, because that's the reflection. So if you kept your money in the bank, in true value, if you calibrate it against Bitcoin, it has lost times 10 minus times 10 in value. So you're not doing yourself a favor. And it's the reason why many banks are hostile, especially in places like UK or even in Nigeria, that they're very hostile to people getting involved in crypto, because it's going to take away the deposit from them. It's grievous. When I think about the way the financial system operates and the way the government operates, it's very grievous for me to think about it. It's daylight robbery. If you did this as a citizen, you will be in jail for so many offenses. Forgery, larceny, counterfeiting. They will jail you for so many things if you are to be an individual that is doing what the banks and the government are doing. But because those are the people telling me, those are the ruling class, really, they get away with them because there are so many laws that protect those establishments and institutions. They get away with it because there's no other explanation of how you printed so much money to a dilution rate of -10. It doesn't make any sense in less than 2 years. Now, the official reports for monetary supply, I don't think that thing is existing anymore, because I understood they took it down. M1 money supply, USC. The official money supply is how much money that the US is printing. Okay. So take a look at this. Let me 5 years. Again, take a look at this. Just take a look at this chart that I'm showing you now versus what I just showed you here from 2019. Just look at from 2019 and look at to current day. This is 2019. Almost an inverted form of that chart. So the money supply went from 350, I don't know how many trillions, how many zeros is this? 3.5 billion or thereabouts. And it's gone from there. So if it's gone from 35 to 65 in less than 2 years. If you dilute anything, if you increase the volume of anything, you dilute the strength of that thing. It's just natural. It's basic science. So what's being done is there's so much dilution that's happened to solve, of course, economic crisis. As a result of that, the government has legally found a way to make everybody poor year on year, legally. So the government is robbing the population through the financial systems to solve its concurrent problems and keeping everybody poor. So in summary for tonight, I don't know why I had to go off that, that rant, but in summary for tonight, I just want to say that understand what is going on, understand the bigger picture. The bigger picture is the government is devaluing currency. Eventually, within the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to hit a point where they will say they want to do a great reset or global reset. What will happen is the debt will have been too much, and they will sort of have to recalibrate the debts, the global debts. So they will say they want to do a great reset or a global reset. And then, just like Ghana did, they will knock off a few zeros from everybody's money at will and say, okay, now that's where we're going to be. And then they'll say, it's almost like what we call swap in cryptocurrency. When you say you are doing token swap, they'll say collect token A. If you have 1,000 units of token A, you will collect 0.1 units of token B. So they will say they're migrating to a digital US dollar, but this digital US dollar is stronger than the normal US dollar by a factor of 5, so 10 raised to power 5. So if you have 100,000, it means you just have $1. Mark my words, it's not going to be long for this thing to happen because the debt ratio is not sustainable. So it doesn't make sense. They keep the debt clock. The thing keeps going up. They say, people are paying taxes to pay off the debt. It's not a complete lie. It's a complete lie. There is too much waste in public sector all over the world that there's no way government is able to pay back on their debt, especially in the Western countries. No way. So they have to keep printing money. As long as they're printing money, they're making people poor by the month. I'm going to stop here. Enough for the rant today. Please, if you have questions, please unmute your mic. I think I've ranted too much today. My head is spinning. If you have questions, please put on your question. If you're on Zoom, you can unmute your mic. If you're on Instagram, just type in your question and I'll answer them. So, but understand, no matter how much money you're making, even if you're making $1 million every month, what it means is that the value of your wealth is dropping by at least 1% every month, at least at the very minimum. In the US, it's dropped more than 1% every month for the last 2 years because they pumped out 25% of the total money supply of the United States dollars was done in the last 2 years. Think about that. 25% of the total dollars in circulation was pumped out in the last 2 years. That is absolute dilution. So everybody has literally lost 20% at least of their wealth between 2019 and now. So take me seriously when I say keep your savings in Bitcoin, because the time is coming. In fact, it's not far. The time is not far anymore when people will begin to see that the money they have in the bank is not really their money. It sounds like conspiracy theory, but look at what's happening in Canada right now. Canada has activated an emergency law saying that they can take possession of your money, they can freeze your accounts, they can call for your money. your data can be collected at will. And what that means is if your account is flagged, that means your money is frozen. These are the things that many of the Bitcoin proponents were saying 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. But it's beginning to happen. And there was a very interesting tweet today by the president of El Salvador that Canada, like a Western country now, will come to want to lecture, developing countries about human rights and civilization. But they themselves are the ones that are behaving like dictators. And he was right, because what's going on in Canada now is, dictatorial advancements. Instead of negotiating and sitting down and consulting with the people, you're invoking emergency orders. Anyways, I think I'm done for tonight, sir. I'm not talking about politics. It's making my head to pain me. Please, if you have any questions, let's take them before we round off for today. Okay. If there are no questions, I'm happy to let you have the rest of your weekend. Enjoy your weekend, everyone. See you again next week. I promise to be better prepared with my slides next week. But Rita, do you have a question?
No.
Okay.
I wanted to say good night and goodbye.
All right. Pastor Kofu, do you have a question?
No, I just want to say get well soon and thank you very much. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Larry. Have a lovely weekend. See you next week.
Sound teaching.
Bye. Bye to everyone on Instagram.
Bye. Bye.